They kicked me out, called me too quiet, and gave everything I built to someone shinier. Now they want a meeting. Cute. Wait till you hear what I told them. I was already halfway through my coffee when I realized my name wasn't on the schedule. The big pitch meeting, the one we'd all been working toward for weeks, was listed for 10 a.m. Same room. Same client. Same deck. But under presenters, it just said, Lila Green. Not a team. Not a group. Just her. I stared at the screen for a second, then refreshed the page like maybe it was a glitch. Nothing changed. Across the room, Lila was sitting on the edge of someone's desk, smiling, gesturing like she was born to hold court. The intern next to me whispered, "She's so good under pressure." I didn't answer. Because I'd written half of that deck. I'd built the framework, structured the campaign logic, rewritten the brief when the client changed direction last minute. And 3 days ago, Lila was still asking me what KPI stood for. At 9:57, I walked to the glass meeting room. My badge worked. No one stopped me. But when I stepped inside, Karen, the creative director, my godmother, and technically Lila's mother, turned and said, "Oh, Sophie. We're actually keeping this one lean." Please subscribe to the Revenge Bay channel and leave your feedback in the comments. Don't miss a single exciting story. Thank you very much, and I will continue. Lila's got it. Her voice was syrupy, sweet, professional. The same tone she used when telling reception to send someone out for lunch. Lila smiled without looking at me. "You don't mind, right?" she said, adjusting her blazer. I just thought one voice would feel tighter. I felt something clench in my throat. "Sure," I said. "Of course." And I walked out. I didn't go back to my desk. I sat in the hallway, stared at the wall, and listened through the glass as Lila launched into the opening lines I'd written. Word for word. Even the rhythm was the same. I could see Karen nodding, smiling proudly, like this was all exactly how it was meant to be. And for a second, I felt stupid for expecting anything else. Lila had always known how to own a room. Since we were kids, she was the one they all leaned toward at dinner parties, the one who got praised for asking polite questions while I cleared plates. Such a natural communicator, my mom used to say, watching her like she was a star on TV. You could learn from her, Sophie. When the meeting ended, the hallway filled with claps and chatter. The client shook Lila's hand twice. Someone said, "She's going to be running this place one day." I stood up and walked straight past the glass, past the copywriters who didn't look me in the eye, past the screen still glowing with my slides. No one stopped me. Why would they? Outside, the air felt sharper. I pulled my coat tight, took out my phone, and deleted the draft email I'd been working on all week, an internal breakdown of campaign logic and next steps. Apparently, they had everything they needed. The office looked different when I came in the next day. Or maybe I did. People weren't rude, just neutral. Smiles with no warmth. Polite nods with eyes that didn't stay long. My desk was still there, but someone had moved my chair. Just slightly. Like a signal. I sat, logged in, and stared at the Slack channel. Nothing. No tags. No updates. No one had even said thank you. The campaign Lila had just presented was already being praised in the client thread. A great direction, they wrote. Feels authentic. I didn't feel anything. That afternoon, I walked into the main conference room to grab a printout from the shared tray. No one was there. The big screen was still on, left over from the pitch. I tapped the keyboard. The deck was open. Still logged in. The name on the document said Lila Green Final vSun. I clicked through it slowly. Every single slide had my work on it. Every framework, layout, headline. Even the draft copy for the rollout video. Except my name was nowhere. The version history had been wiped. Or overwritten. Lila's name was the only one that remained. I stood there, screen glowing in my face, and thought, this wasn't a mistake. This was a decision. The sound of laughter outside the glass pulled me back. Karen was standing with 2 senior partners, talking about next week's panel event. Lila will be front and center, she said. She really captured the spirit of the brand. One of them nodded and said, "She's a star." So polished. I walked back to my desk and sat down, cold all over. My phone buzzed. A message from my mom. Saw Karen's post. Lila did so well. You must be proud of her, smiley face. Proud of her. The word sent me straight back to the summer of the garden party. I was 14. Lila was 13. It was my birthday technically, but Karen had offered to host it since she had the nicer yard. My mom agreed instantly. Lila gave a short welcome speech, thanked everyone for coming, then led a party game she didn't even plan. I did. I spent 2 hours building that scavenger hunt, and when it finished, people clapped for Lila. Karen said, "She's so organized." My mom nodded, smiling at her with actual pride. I got a wrapped book and a side hug. Another time, senior year. I got into the business school I dreamed about. First acceptance in the family. My mom barely looked up from her phone when I told her. But when Lila won Best Dressed at Prom, they reposted her story on Facebook with the caption, "That's our girl." Back at my desk, I stared at the empty Slack thread. Someone dropped a donut on the break room table and tagged Lila in a comment, "For the Queen." I closed my laptop. Walked out. On the elevator down, I ran into Lila. She smiled like everything was normal. "Hey. Sorry about the last-minute shift yesterday. It just made sense for one of us to present, you know? Less noise." "Noise?" I smiled back. "Of course," I said. "You sounded great." I meant it the way people mean have a nice day to someone they never want to see again. She stepped off on the 4th floor. I kept going. I didn't leave right away. I wanted to see how far they'd take it. The day after the pitch, I showed up at my desk like nothing had happened. No one said a word. Not about the campaign, not about the meeting, not about me. I scrolled through the team Slack, no messages. No credits, no acknowledgement, not even a recap. Just a photo Karen had posted of Lila in the conference room, mid-speech, with the caption, "So proud of this powerhouse, leading the next generation with clarity and grace." I stared at the screen. The comments rolled in. "She's amazing. What a star. She just gets it." I didn't like the feeling in my chest. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was more like sinking. Like watching yourself disappear while everyone applauds. I spent most of the day in silence. In the late afternoon, I went into the shared conference room on the 3rd floor. It was mostly empty, used for casual brainstorms and team hangouts. I acted like I was looking for something, then turned on the screen and opened the internal folder system. My access still worked. I wasn't even surprised. There it was, the deck. Version 1, 2, 3, and then the final. I clicked through each one slowly. The early drafts had my notes, my copy, my exact wording. I opened the metadata, my name in the edit log, my initials on the file properties. But in the final version? All of it was gone. Stripped clean. Renamed, Green Campaign Final Deck. No co-author. Just her. I printed the edit history and emailed it to myself. Just in case. Downstairs, I passed Lila talking to someone from the brand team. She laughed too loudly. Said something like, "It's all about instinct, honestly. You can't teach vision." I didn't stop walking. That night, I went home earlier than usual. I found my parents in the kitchen. My mom was scrolling her phone while my dad rinsed salad leaves. They barely looked up when I walked in. "Hey," I said. I sat at the table. My mom smiled, distracted. "Hi, honey. Long day?" I hesitated. Karen posted something. About Lila and the campaign. "Did you see it?" "Oh yes." She brightened. She looked so confident. "Honestly, she's just a natural, isn't she?" Karen said the client loved her pitch. I stared at her. It was my campaign. Silence. "What do you mean?" She asked, casual, almost amused. "I worked on it for 3 weeks. I wrote the original brief. The direction Lila presented, it was mine. They took me off the team right before the meeting." My dad frowned. "Why would they do that?" I shrugged. "You'd have to ask them." My mom laughed nervously. "Oh, I'm sure it's not personal. You're still learning, right? Maybe they just thought she had more presence. More presence. The salad spinner kept whirring. She's not better than me, I said. No one argued. They just looked at each other like I was being difficult. My dad finally said, well, maybe this is motivation. You know, to push yourself harder. Right. Motivation. I stood up without another word, walked to my room, closed the door, sat on the floor. For a while I didn't move. I just let the air settle around me, thick and bitter. Then I pulled out my laptop, logged into the internal drive, and copied every document with my name on it. Every early file, every time-stamped idea, every message where Karen said, "Let's use Sophie's direction here." I didn't know what I'd do with them yet. But I knew I wasn't going to sit quietly and let my own story be written without me. I didn't plan to quit that week. But on Tuesday morning, I sat at my desk and realized I'd stopped breathing the moment I walked through the door. The air in the office felt different now. Not heavy, just hollow. Like nothing here was mine. Like I'd already left and no one had noticed. At 10:07 a.m., a group of execs passed my desk laughing. Lila was with them. She had a coffee in one hand and her phone in the other, showing something on the screen. I caught a glimpse, a selfie from the pitch, framed with the words Young Creative Spotlight. Someone must have nominated her for a feature. She caught my eye as they passed and said, "Hey, you should totally submit something to the intern blog. You've got a cool voice." Like I was a side note in her newsletter. That afternoon, Karen called me into her office. "Just wanted to check in," she said, flipping through papers. "You've been quiet." I nodded. "Been focused." She smiled like that was acceptable. "Lila's really stepped into a leadership role lately. We're thinking of giving her more visibility. I know you two have worked closely and that synergy is valuable." "Synergy," I repeated. She leaned forward, warm. "I hope you don't feel overlooked. There are always more projects. But sometimes someone just shines a little brighter, you know." There it was. The message behind the smile. Some people just belong at the front. And I didn't. Not in their world. When I walked out of her office, I knew I was done. Not because of rage. Not even disappointment. Just clarity. I opened my laptop. Drafted a one-sentence email. Subject, resignation. Body, effective immediately. Thank you for the experience. I didn't add warmth. I didn't add a smiley face. I hit send. I stood up, unplugged my charger, and slid it into my bag. A few people glanced at me, sensing something, but no one asked. No one stopped me. I took the long hallway toward the exit, passing framed posters of past campaigns, group photos from launch parties. I wasn't in any of them. As I reached the elevator, I heard someone call my name. "Sophie." Lila jogged up, a yogurt in her hand, still smiling. "Hey, Karen said you're leaving?" "I am," I said. She tilted her head like I'd surprised her. "Oh wow. Are you sure? I mean, obviously you've got talent, but these kinds of gigs are hard to come by." "I know." She paused. "Well, I hope this isn't about the campaign stuff. I mean, that was just logistics. Timing. You know how it goes." "Sure," I said. "You're right. It's just how it goes." She seemed relieved by that. "Okay, good. I just didn't want you to feel like, sidelined or anything." "I didn't feel sidelined, Lila," I said, pressing the elevator button. "I just finally saw where the sides were." The doors opened. I stepped in. She stayed in the hallway, smiling faintly like she didn't quite get it. I didn't wave. When I got home that night, my mom asked how work was. "I quit," I said. She looked up from folding laundry, startled. "You what?" "I left the agency." She frowned. "Sophie, that place had so much potential. And Karen was trying to help you. You can't just throw opportunities away because you're upset." "I'm not upset," I said. "I'm done." She looked like she wanted to argue but didn't. Just sighed. "Well, what are you going to do now?" I didn't answer. Not because I didn't know, but because I wasn't going to tell her until I was ready to show her. The first week after I quit, I slept. On the fifth morning, I opened my laptop and stared at the folder I'd labeled just in case. Inside, every version of the campaign, every timestamped doc, every deleted comment that proved I had been there first. But I didn't open them. I wasn't going back. That wasn't the plan. Instead, I opened a blank slide deck. No title. No color scheme. Just white space. By noon, I had 10 slides. By the end of the day, I had an outline for a brand strategy workshop, small scale, built for boutique clients who couldn't afford agencies like Karen's, but were tired of being told authentic meant trendy fonts and empty slogans. I started messaging old contacts. Not from the agency, but from before, student projects, nonprofits, that one indie tea brand that folded because they tried to go viral before they were ready. I emailed 3 of them. 2 responded. 1 booked a Zoom call. That first pitch was messy but honest. I didn't pretend to be something I wasn't. I just asked good questions, listened more than I talked, and offered real answers instead of buzzwords. They said yes. No contracts. Just a small retainer and an idea, rebuild their identity from the inside out. It was enough. I worked from my bedroom, surrounded by half-used notebooks and a broken ring light. I bought a used mic and recorded voiceovers myself. I ran test surveys on Reddit. I designed logos at 2 a.m. while the rest of the world was chasing clout. I didn't post on LinkedIn. I didn't update my resume. I didn't tell my parents. I told Emma. Emma was a friend from undergrad who'd moved to Portland and worked in sustainable retail. We weren't close, but she knew how to spot quiet moves. "You're building something," she said on our second call. "I can feel it." "I'm just experimenting," I told her. "No," she smiled. "You're reclaiming." By the end of the month, I had 3 clients. Small ones. Local coffee roaster. Ethical jewelry startup. 1 regional bookstore chain that wanted to rebrand after a PR disaster. I said yes to all of them. And slowly, my calendar started to fill with things that felt like mine. The weirdest part? I didn't miss the agency. Not the fake energy. Not the endless meetings. Not the scrambling for credit that never came. I didn't miss Lila's performative charm or Karen's passive praise. I missed the work. But I was doing it again, only now it had my name on it. Late one night, while organizing my invoices, I checked Karen's profile out of curiosity. A new post, of course. A new photo of Lila on stage at a networking event. Caption: "Proud to see my girl continuing to lead with heart." Hundreds of likes. Praise in the comments. No mention of the recent client drop-off. No hint that one of their biggest brands had pulled out after a poorly received relaunch. But I knew. The jewelry client I'd picked up? They used to be Karen's. They found me through an article I wrote on Medium called "Authenticity Can't Be Filtered." It didn't go viral. But the right people saw it. The first sign that something was wrong came in the form of a half-hearted apology. It wasn't directed at me. It was an Instagram story from one of Lila's former clients, a boutique skincare brand I recognized from my intern days. The caption was short: "We hear you. We're working on doing better." 井号 transparency. No explanation. No context. Just a woman's face, slightly blurred, staring into the camera like she wasn't sure why she was recording in the first place. I swiped past it without thinking. But 2 days later, the comments started showing up on LinkedIn. Quiet at first. Then sharper. "This feels generic. Is this really what Gen Z wants? Why does this sound like AI?" It was the new campaign Karen's agency had launched, Lila's campaign. The one she took full credit for. I clicked through the press release. Bright colors, clever phrasing, a recycled concept about redefining beauty from within. I remembered that pitch. Not because it was mine, it wasn't, but because I had watched it get built from leftover ideas and stitched together in a rush after a client pivoted. It was thin. Pretty but empty. A few days later, a known industry blogger posted a piece titled, "When Branding Tries Too Hard to Be Real." The screenshots were unmistakable. Lila's face. Her voice. Her quotes. I didn't smile. I didn't comment. I just kept working. At the same time, I was finishing a rebrand for the regional bookstore chain. It wasn't flashy. It didn't have filters or buzzwords. But it had heart. They let me include a voice note section on their site, snippets from staff talking about their favorite books. People loved it. It went quietly viral on Book Talk. Their orders tripled in a week. They sent me flowers. A thank you note. A voice message from the founder that ended with, "You got us. You really got us." That was the first time in a long time I cried. Not because I was sad, but because it felt like someone had finally seen me. Meanwhile, Karen's agency kept spinning. They hosted a rooftop mixer to celebrate young creatives in leadership. Lila posted about it with the caption, "Pushing boundaries with my favorite thinkers." I recognized 3 of the faces in the photo. None of them had ever pushed a boundary in their lives. They had, however, pushed a lot of interns out of their own work. That same week, I got an email from a familiar name, a junior designer from Karen's agency. She said, "I don't know what you're doing, but people are noticing. The vibe's different without you here. Like colder. Anyway, if you ever need freelance help, I'm available." I read it twice, then forwarded it to Emma with one line, "This is how it starts." The next morning, I saw that the jewelry brand had quietly removed Karen's agency from their partner list. No announcement. Just gone. Their new launch post didn't tag anyone. But I knew they used the deck I gave them. I sat with that for a long time. The feeling wasn't revenge. It wasn't even satisfaction. It was proof. I didn't need to burn anything down. I just had to build something better, and wait for them to feel the silence I left behind. The message came on a Wednesday afternoon, tucked between a newsletter I didn't subscribe to and a spammy discount code for ergonomic desk chairs. Subject: catching up. From Karen. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. "Hi Sophie. Hope you're doing well. I've been hearing great things about some of your recent work, very impressive. We've got a few projects in motion that could use your voice, especially in the early brand positioning stage. Would love to talk. Karen." No apology. No acknowledgement. Just a warm, polished reintroduction, like everything that happened before was a minor scheduling issue, easily smoothed over with a smile and a casual offer to reconnect. I didn't respond. Not right away. Instead, I opened my project tracker and added a note to the bottom. Karen contacted me, unsure why. I didn't have to guess for long. The next day, one of my clients, the coffee roaster with the tiny team and way too big dreams, forwarded me an email from Green Creative. They'd pitched a concept eerily similar to the one I'd built 2 weeks earlier. Not copied outright. Just close enough to make you squint. "We already have someone," the client replied, CCING me. "And we're sticking with her." That evening, I went to dinner at my parents' place. My mom greeted me at the door with a plate of something beige and overcooked, her usual culinary signature. My dad was already halfway through a glass of wine. We ate in silence for a while. Then, as casually as if we were discussing weather, my mom said, "Karen called me yesterday." I didn't look up. "She said she reached out to you. Wants to talk about a project." "She did." My mom smiled like that meant something good. "See? I told you she still cared. You two had a little bump, that's all. It's great that she's giving you another shot." I set my fork down. "It's not a shot, Mom. It's a reaction. She's losing clients." My dad cleared his throat. "Maybe so. But if she's offering you a chance to come back, maybe don't burn the bridge. People talk in this industry." "I didn't set the bridge on fire," I said. "I just stopped pretending it wasn't already collapsing." They exchanged that familiar look, part discomfort, part parental superiority. Like I was being too sensitive, too dramatic, too something. "She gave Lila a lot of opportunities," my mom added. "That counts for something." Of course it did. In their world, loyalty flowed up, never sideways. After dinner, I went for a walk just to clear the static in my head. I passed a bakery with my logo in the window, small, simple, mine. The owner saw me and waved. That wave did more than anything Karen or my parents had said all year. I went home and finally opened Karen's email again. I didn't delete it. I didn't respond either. I just marked it as unread. Let her sit with the silence for once. We met at the kind of place where people ordered sparkling water with cucumber slices and called it lunch. Karen picked it, of course. She arrived 5 minutes late but acted like she'd been waiting for me. "Sophie," she said, arms wide like we were old friends who'd simply drifted apart. "You look amazing." I smiled politely and sat down. She ordered for both of us before I could speak, roasted beet salad, no cheese. "It's lighter," she said. "You'll love it." We small-talked for 2 minutes. Weather, her vacation home, a vague reference to industry chaos that she didn't specify. Then she folded her hands like she was shifting into real conversation. "I just want to say," she began, "you've really grown." Grown. That word did something to me. "I've been hearing your name a lot lately," she continued. "Clients are talking. People are impressed. Honestly, I'm proud of you." I raised my eyebrows. She took a sip of her drink, then leaned forward. "So here's what I was thinking. We've got a few legacy clients that need fresh perspective. The agency's grown a lot and I'll be honest, we miss your touch." I nodded slowly. "Which clients?" "Oh, it's not confirmed yet," she said quickly. "I just want to explore possibilities. Maybe you come on as a consultant. Flexible structure. We'd give you full creative control, under our umbrella, of course." Of course. There it was. The offer to bring me back, neatly folded inside flattery and control. "Come home, Sophie. But don't expect to own anything." "What happened with Harper and Rose?" I asked. It wasn't a guess. It was a test. Karen blinked. "Was that you?" she asked finally. I tilted my head. "What do you mean?" She smiled too tightly. "They said they wanted something more grounded. But if you're the one behind that campaign, Sophie, it was brilliant." The shift was small, but I felt it. The first crack in her performance. She didn't know how much I knew. She didn't like not knowing. She tapped her fingers against the table, then tried a new angle. "I know we've had our bumps, but I hope you don't think I was ever trying to diminish you. You were learning. Lila had more experience presenting." "That's not why you chose her," I said. Calm. Direct. Karen flinched, just a little. "I chose her because..." "You chose her because she was easier to package." She fell silent. The salad arrived untouched. "I'm not angry," I added. "I just see things clearly now. You didn't build that place for girls like me. You built it for girls like Lila." She gave me a careful smile. "Well, you're not exactly invisible anymore." "No," I said. "I'm not." We sat in silence for a beat too long. Finally, she said, "If you change your mind, the offer's open. Just don't wait too long. Momentum matters." I nodded. "Thanks." But I wouldn't. I left the cafe without finishing the salad. Outside, the sun had dropped behind the buildings, casting long shadows across the sidewalk. I felt taller. Not louder. Just more solid. Like I finally fit the space I occupied. On my walk home, I passed a billboard with a campaign I'd worked on, not one of the stolen ones. A real one. Mine. The logo was small, but I saw it. My client had kept my name. I pulled out my phone and checked my inbox. A new message had come in. No formal deck, no bold subject line, no attachment with 10 bullet points and 5 deliverables. Just a short message from the founder of Riverline Skin. "We've been watching your work. You listen. You see things others miss. We don't want a campaign. We want a voice. Want to build something with us." No titles. No buzzwords. Just trust. We set a call for Thursday. 45 minutes turned into 2 hours. They weren't polished. They didn't have glossy packaging or market-tested language. But they had purpose, and they didn't want me to filter or shrink to fit it. At the end of the call, Emily said, "We're not just offering a contract. We're offering equity. If you want in." I didn't answer right away. I closed my laptop and went for a walk. It was raining, light, cold, almost apologetic. I let it hit my face and thought about everything that had led here. Not just Karen. Not just Lila. But the dozens of small ways I'd been trained to play nice. To shrink. To be helpful, not visible. To be smart but never threatening. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. When I got home, my parents were waiting in the kitchen. I hadn't told them I was coming, but they always had a way of knowing when I was about to do something they didn't understand. My dad stood. "We just want to talk." My mom, trying too hard to be gentle, said, "Karen reached out again. She said she met with you." "She did. She said you were respectful. But distant. Maybe even a little cold." I raised an eyebrow. I was clear. "She's offering you a second chance," my dad said. "I know things were messy, but she still believes in you." "No," I said. "She believes I'm useful again." My mom sighed. "Sophie, you're being stubborn." I took a breath. You know what stubborn looks like? Building something from scratch while the people who were supposed to support you said, "Just be patient." While they reposted Lila's pictures and told me to smile more. That's not stubborn. That's survival. The room went quiet. "I got an offer," I said finally. "A real one. Not to join someone's team. To build my own." My dad blinked. "What kind of offer?" "Equity. Strategy lead. Full voice." They didn't cheer. They didn't even smile. Instead, my mom said, "That's a lot of pressure." "It is," I said. "But it's mine." They left shortly after that. Polite hugs. Half smiles. As they walked out, my mom said, "Lila's been feeling really down lately. She misses you." I looked at her. I don't think she ever really saw me. That night, I stood in front of my window and reread the Riverline email. Then I opened a new message. "I'm in. Let's build it. Sophie." I hit send. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel powerful. I just felt like myself. For the first time in a long time. And that was enough. The auditorium wasn't big, but it felt full. Riverline's brand launch wasn't designed to go viral. No influencers. No neon signage or fake buzz. Just real people, real founders, and a product they actually believed in. I stood backstage in a simple black blazer, holding my note cards like a formality. I didn't need them. I'd written every word. Emily walked over and squeezed my shoulder. "You ready?" "More than." They introduced me as brand architect. I walked on stage to polite applause and one camera phone recording in the second row. The kind of launch no one notices until 6 months later, when it's everywhere. I talked for 10 minutes. About intention. About storytelling. About what happens when people stop trying to sell and start trying to connect. No one interrupted. No one tried to cut in and explain what I meant. When I walked off stage, I caught sight of someone near the back wall. Karen. In sunglasses, indoors. Next to her, Lila in a neutral tone dress, clapping too late, like she hadn't expected to be clapping at all. I kept walking. After the event, there was a small reception. No press wall. Just a table of real food and a playlist someone made that morning. Karen found me by the coffee table. "You were impressive," she said. I nodded. "I know." She smiled. The polite kind. The tight one. "We're pivoting some things. It's been a tough quarter." I waited. She hesitated then. "If you ever want to reconnect." "I don't." Her lips parted, just slightly. I held her gaze. "I'm not angry. I just don't need anything from you anymore." She looked away. "You've really changed." "No," I said. "You just finally saw me." I walked away. Lila didn't speak to me. She stood in the corner talking to someone from a print magazine that wasn't covering the event. She didn't look lost. Just quieter. Smaller than I remembered. And maybe that was it. Maybe I didn't grow louder. Maybe I just stopped dimming myself for the people who refused to adjust their eyes. Later that night, I posted a photo from the launch. Just the stage empty now with one spotlight still glowing. Caption: I wasn't looking for revenge. Just a seat at the table. Turns out I was meant to build my own. It got fewer likes than Lila's. But I didn't need their applause. I had my name. My work. And a table with my name carved into the wood. That was the story now. And this time no one could rewrite it. And now I would like to hear your opinion. Who really did wrong in this story? Write your versions in the comments. Do you want your story to be broadcast on the channel? Write it in the comments or send it to me at the email address listed in the channel description. I will definitely voice the most interesting ones.